Happy spooky season. It's that time of year to cozy up on the couch with your favorite Halloween movies. Halloween movies can be lots of things: spooky, thrilling, funny, romantic, and cozy even. But what most of them have in common are intriguing and sometimes really gross looking food scenes. So today, I thought it would be fun to turn a few of those interesting dishes into some tasty ones. So grab a warm drink, put on your fuzzy socks, and let's begin. With what I think has to be the most iconic of the bunch, it's The Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm pretty sure that I've seen this over 100 times by now. For some reason, it's the only movie they'd play at my after-school program in elementary school, even when it wasn't Halloween or Christmas. But there's not too many food moments in this film. There's the occasional candy cane, gingerbread man, and the candy stuck in Sandy Claus's beard. But then there's this iconic scene where Sally tries to escape by poisoning Dr. Finkelstein's supper, which they call wormwort soup in the movie.
Ah, what's that? Wormswort!
Aside from these ingredients, it's not really clear exactly what's in Sally's soup, so I went with a creamy green soup with lots of autumnal vegetables to make this taste fall-esque. First off, grab all of the veggies and give them a rough chop. One of the ingredients we do see Sally add to the pot is frog's breath, which supposedly has an overpowering odor to mask the poison she adds, so we're using a whole head of garlic here. Along with a zucchini, a few potatoes, some leek, and half a head each of broccoli and cauliflower. Transfer everything to a large baking sheet, drizzle over lots of olive oil, and don't forget the salt and pepper. Now this goes into the oven to roast at 400 degrees for about 30-ish minutes or so. While that cools down just a bit, into a large cauldron, you're going to gently heat up the vegetable broth and frozen peas, allowing this to simmer for about 10 minutes while we get everything ready to blend together. Transfer all of that beautifully roasted veg into the blender together with a handful of spinach and the warm broth and peas. And to make this quote-unquote authentic, remember to toss in the frog's breath, aka the roasted garlic, deadly nightshade, aka parsley, and the wormwort itself, aka apple cider vinegar. Transfer this back to the pot and adjust with more broth until you're happy with the consistency. Bring everything to a simmer. Definitely taste test and adjust with more salt and pepper and any other spices, sauces, or seasonings that you might like. And that's pretty much it. For a fun touch, I piped on the little skull that steams out of the cauldron when she adds in the deadly nightshade, and I did that with some sour cream, but I think it turned out really cute. I mean, as cute as a green soup can be. But the soup is so comforting and super flavorful with all of that roasted garlic and the slight sweetness from all of the different roasted veggies. And of course, even better with lots and lots of croutons. Really good. Alright, this next movie still haunts me. It's Coraline.
You're just in time for supper, dear.
After watching it the first time as a kid, I swore to never, ever watch it ever again. But I think it was back in college when my best friend forced me to watch it with her since it was her favorite movie, and since then I've actually become utterly fascinated with all of the lore and theories behind the movie, which we'll talk about in a bit. But even though her character is so unsettling, Other Mother's Supper looks genuinely delicious. And it's a nice contrast from the typical gross looking foods that we see in most Halloween movies, especially this magical welcome home cake. I love all of the intricate decoration details on this cake, but I hate that we never get to see what it looks like on the inside. Like, they just serve up this beautiful cake and then they just walk away. Like, why? So I went for blue velvet cake layers with yellow cream cheese frosting to match her iconic blue hair and bright yellow raincoat combo. Very cute, very cute. So the night before, I baked the cake layers. Grab a large cup and add all of the wet ingredients, that being the buttermilk, eggs, a splash of vinegar, vanilla, and the blue food coloring. Into a large mixing bowl, cream together the softened butter and sugar before sifting in a bit of cocoa powder and giving that a good whisk until light and fluffy. Then go ahead and alternate between adding the dry and wet ingredients, making sure not to overmix the batter. And divide that evenly between the 3 cake pans. Although I only ended up using 2 of the layers at the end. But yeah, just bake them off for 30 to 35 minutes at 350 degrees and let those cool overnight. The next morning, I immediately got to work on the frosting. First, whip up some cream cheese together with some vanilla and salt, mixing that for a good minute or 2, followed by the powdered sugar for another few minutes, and then you add the heavy cream bit by bit in a few stages until you get this nice, creamy yet still soft icing, which I divided and dyed the different colors, so yellow, pink, and red? Yeah, red. And then I made some of it chocolate flavored with some cocoa powder to frost around the entire cake. Now on to assembling and frosting the cake. I placed down 1 layer of the cake onto my cake stand with a dollop of frosting under it, just to make sure that nothing moves around too much while we do our thing. But yeah, I added a thick layer of the yellow frosting, making sure to spread that evenly before adding on the next cake layer, and you can keep going with more cream and cake. But I ended up just liking it this way, so I left it how it is here and just went with 2. Then it's time to do the crumb coat, which doesn't need to be perfect. We're just looking to trap any of those loose crumbs so that the final icing layer looks nice and pretty. And yeah, with the rest of the chocolate frosting, I smoothed the sides as best as I could. Finally, to do my favorite part, the decorations, I wanted to go for a very cartoonish style here, so with the pink frosting, I piped really thick looking drips around the top of the cake and smoothed those out with my spatula. Now, I absolutely hate writing on cakes, not to mention that I also suck at it, so I knew I couldn't mess this next part up. The most important detail of this entire cake was nailing the double-looped O in the word home. According to graphologists or handwriting experts, a lowercase double-looped O means that the writer is lying. So Coraline is welcomed, but she isn't home. Isn't that crazy? The whole movie has so many little Easter eggs like this, and I've become obsessed with reading fan theories and rewatching the film every year to spot new ones that I've missed before. But anyways, I'm so happy with how this cake turned out. Not only does it look really cute, but it pretty closely resembles the one in the movie, if I do say so myself. I mean, my writing could definitely use some work, but this was such a delicious cake. I love this frosting recipe. It's super light, not too sweet, and went perfectly with the moist cake layers here. I had so much fun with this one. So of course, I had to make the soup. But because we've already made a green soup in this video, I decided to take the sweet route with this one, so hear me out. We're making a Japanese and Taiwanese inspired cold dessert with matcha jelly, mochi balls, and a sort of matcha broth, if you will. Apart from this being a dessert, I want to say that this turned out quite accurately. So let's start off with the jelly. First off, prepare a sweetened matcha shot. In a small saucepan over low heat, add the gelatin and water, stirring until it's fully dissolved. And yeah, bring together the matcha shot and the dissolved gelatin, and pour that into a shallow dish, and let this firm up for at least 6 hours. For the eyeballs, I decided on mochi balls, or more specifically Japanese dango, since they're super round and also very popular in desserts like senzai, where they're served in sweet soups. You only need 3 ingredients, which are glutinous rice flour, powdered sugar, and tofu. Here I'm using silken tofu, which helps to create that soft, bouncy mochi texture without leaving much of a taste, surprisingly. After kneading the dough into a smoothish ball, set aside a small portion which we're coloring black for the pupils. And then just form these into eyeball shapes. Let these cook in boiling water for just a few minutes. You'll know they're ready once they float to the top. Finally, we can cut up the set jelly, which I know doesn't look the most appetizing here, but we're gonna hide it under the soup anyways, so no worries. Speaking of soup, the matcha broth is basically the same sweetened matcha shot we made earlier, with an extra cup of ice water whisked in at the end. My walls are still stained green from getting this shot, but I think it was worth it. There's an eye in me soup. This was such a refreshing treat. All of the different textures were so satisfying and complementary together, but I will warn you that this is a highly caffeinated dessert, so enjoy in moderation. Okay, so I'm not sure if this TV miniseries technically counts as a Halloween show, but it definitely falls into that category of spooky comfort watches for me. And it is only like 2 hours long, so kind of like a movie. Over the Garden Wall tells the story of two brothers who find themselves lost in a strange forest. And along their mysterious adventure, we do see quite a few tasty food moments, but this one is definitely the most memorable.
No potatoes and molasses. If you can't see 'em, put on your...
I just love Greg so much. So much so that I ended up trying potatoes with just molasses, and yeah, that was not it. So I ended up making mashed Japanese sweet potatoes to complement the molasses flavor and paired that with a savory molasses gravy. Okay, let's start with the garlic butter that we're using across the entire dish. Really basic, just toss a few smashed garlic cloves, salted butter, and some parsley leaves into a small saucepan over low and let that do its thing in the background. I wish you could smell this. It smells incredible in here. So beautiful. Meanwhile, go ahead and prep the potatoes. I let this boil for a good 10 to 15 minutes, or until the potatoes were tender. Draining them back into the pan and setting the heat to low. Add in half the garlic butter, some milk, some sour cream, and mash everything up to your preferred consistency, of course. I like mine really smooth, but with a few chunks. To the remaining garlic butter, I'm cooking down some sliced shallots, giving that 3 to 4 minutes. Once that's aromatic and super fragrant, add in the flour. Mix that in well. Then pour in a cup of beef stock. Bring this up to a boil and let this simmer for 2 to 3 minutes until the gravy is thick and glossy. And don't forget to add a bit of molasses right at the end. Oh my gosh, the molasses. Tiny bit. Oh no! Ow, it's hot. Oh no. And plate it up. This was inexplicably good. Like, I didn't know mashed potatoes could be this good type of good. The molasses in the gravy was actually incredible. Like, it added this rich depth of flavor to it. I don't know, it's really hard to explain, so please try it yourself. And thank you, Greg, for the tasty idea. This last and final movie is pure nostalgia. It's the first movie from the classic Peanuts holiday trilogy. It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. The holidays just don't feel like the holidays without these movies. I still remember them being aired on TV every single year starting in the fall time. And it just felt right to include this one since there's been a huge Snoopy resurgence this year, which I'm not mad about. It sort of brought back that childhood excitement for me, and everything is just so cute. Okay, from what I remember, there's no actual food scenes in the movie, but there is the famous scene where the kids go trick-or-treating and Charlie Brown keeps getting rocks instead of candy.
I got a rock.
So I thought it would be fun to make rock-shaped treats. So here are my chocolate crinkle rock cookies. I prepped the cookie dough the night before, but you could totally do this all in the same day. I've just been loving late night baking lately, and I think resting the dough overnight really improves the texture and flavor of the cookies, but totally up to you. In a large mixing bowl, cream together some sugar and soften butter. Whip this up using an electric hand mixer until it's light and fluffy. And then follow that up with your eggs along with some vanilla. Give this another mix. And then add your dry ingredients, the flour, baking soda, and the black cocoa. My idea behind this was that this would give them more of a rock appearance, if that even exists. And black cocoa is what makes Oreos taste the way they do. So, I mean, a giant fudgy Oreo cookie sounds amazing. But yeah, that's the dough done, and just let that chill in the fridge overnight. The next morning, I scooped the dough into balls and I went for humongous cookies here since they look to be the size of Charlie Brown's entire hand in the movie. So I got around 6 cookies from this batch. I rolled each one into a mix of equal parts regular sugar and powdered sugar until they were completely coated. Bake these for 10 to 12 minutes or until the edges are crisp but the middle is still nice and soft. I got a rock. Look at all those beautiful cracks on top. These cookies are incredibly addictive. Again, they taste like a giant fudgy soft Oreo, almost brownie-like. And dipping them into milk is definitely the move. So good. That's all I have for you today. I hope you're having a fun and festive Spooktober. I'd love to know what Halloween movies or TV shows that you love to watch during this time of year. And thank you again for spending time with me. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.